Hello guys, Jesus here. I know it's been a while, but I didn't have much time to make videos recently. The last few days, however, I had some time and motivation and made a new cannon. And I think I've gone all out this time. I believe this is one of the best stackers that you can make on this version currently. The wiring on this is a bit wonky, some stuff is a bit... could maybe be improved. It's still my cannon after all, but I believe this concept and this implementation of it could be really important for cannons on this version for saving TNT. And I'm gonna get into what it is real quick. So this is an anti-gravity AG 384 stacker, 1 power. This does have the ability to hybrid, and it's also possible to add a nuke on it, which would use more TNT, that's why I haven't added it here. This is supposed to be a budget cannon that you use for cheap raids. We can, real quick here, count the dispensers. As you can see, we have 1046 dispensers on this cannon, and nothing is double pulsed, so this all just fires once per shot. And with that, we can achieve a range of over 70 chunks. Yes, this stacks and hybrids at over 70 chunks. Now, the drawback of this is, well, first of all, this cannon here is not very fast. I've built it not to be fast, but more as a proof of concept. It shoots at 4 seconds, which is still fast enough for most servers right now. None of them have a jar anyways, so it lags like shit if you auto a cannon. But that being said, it will be hard to bust regions with this unless you can remove the water on top. This does stack at build height, so you can do that. If that doesn't work for the regions you're trying to bust, you can probably add a very delayed scatter on here to double tap, but it's not going to be easy, not going to be fun. So this is not meant for region busting right now. Still a lot of fun things you can do with this though. And the other drawback is obviously this will clip on anything. If weird things happen with the walls, if people patch, this is going to clip, just so you know. That's just what AGs do in general. Plus, this boots up a few blocks, so obviously it's going to clip on anything. You can see here is the barrel, and the socket shot out here, and from here it goes up. If there's anything in the way in that area, it has a chance to clip on it and not stack at all. So this can't be used for force raiding. Still, being able to set up very far away is a big advantage if people check walls regularly. I believe with this you could get in a raid within an hour if they don't notice you setting up between wall check intervals. As you know, 119 servers aren't really that competitive, so people check walls usually. Even the top factions check every hour or every half an hour at the end of the map. So with this you can set up without being noticed. Alright, before I ramble on more about this cannon, let me fire to show you what this thing can actually do. Oh, I forgot to fill in the sand. Let me really quickly refill the magic sand here. The sand comp is a bit of a problem in this cannon. I mean that in the way that the sand comp is in front of the barrel here. It did a bit poorly. It could be changed, I could remake it, but it's a tough effort. So you can't stack the sand higher than like this block here. Well, over there there's stuff in the way, so it's at this level now. Its comp is really big, you might notice that, because I'm actually only putting in 4 rows because the sand needs to go really fast. So it's not that big of a problem. It uses 4 rows per shot, you have enough time to refill it. Or if you have sandbots, it's not a problem anyways. But just keep that in mind. I'm also not releasing this cannon quite yet, because I might want to use it in raids myself. But I will release it at some point. Might put it on my Patreon first. Might be in there for a while, but not right now. This won't be released at the moment. Might also still improve some things. Or make a better version. So let's look at what this does a bit closer. obviously shoots sand to the wall that goes up and also TNT, and then it hybrids the wall after stacking. So how you can achieve that with one power is quite a difficult question, and anti-gravity actually offers a solution to this. I've made a video before on my TNT and sand ratio finder for this version, where I go into a bit of detail about anti-gravity, but I'm going to explain it here again. If you want to have more detail or know how you can find ratios like this yourself, I'll link the video in the description. So let me really quickly go into some detail about how this works. So as you can see, we have different guiders here, a grindstone and a large amethyst spot. And this is just some stuff, some setup that my program spit out for me. And this setup is meant to bring the falling block and TNT exposure points as close together as possible. The way you do that is obviously by using different guiders and different timings on the boosters, so they align after falling for some time here in the barrel. For this ratio, for an anti-gravity, I picked a ratio where I was sure that both the points were very close to the explosion height of a TNT. So if you don't know, the TNT explosion takes place 1 pixel up in the TNT, which is about 0.6225 or something like that. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it's very low down. So you need, for the anti-gravity, both the sources of the sand and TNT to be really close to that. So the arc they fly it when they get power is not very high. So it doesn't just fly away. As you can see, there's no top guider here, so these fly upwards freely. That's also how they can, after hitting the wall, still go up further. Now, here is the concept of why the anti-gravity can have such a high range. Obviously, if the sand and TNT are slowly going upwards, instead of starting to fall right after being shot out of the barrel, they only start to fall after the upwards velocity is gone, which, with this amount of power, is really late. Obviously, we're limited the time it can fly by other factors like how far it's gone up and when the hammer can go off. But you can achieve way higher range than this if you do it properly with a better anti-gravity setup. The clue here is that even after hitting the wall, the sand and TNT will not lose their velocity. So after the same amount of time, they will always end up at the same height if they're not blocked. So the same ratio works for every distance that you're shooting at. Now to the way this can actually stack. The ratio I am using has the TNT slightly higher than the sand, because obviously that's still different. This is a very minuscule amount, but it's enough that over the time it flies, the TNT gets above the sand, and when it explodes, it can stack the sand. We can see that again if I fire here once more. As you can see, they start out really close together when they hit the wall. But they separate further and further as they go up. Obviously, they are already separated when they hit the wall, because they start separating from the first tick on. But that's how I stack with only one power, because I can shoot those out with the same power. Now the second question is, how do you hybrid with such a setup? And that was actually way more difficult. Thanks for Belgian Bomber for helping me with that. He actually told me how he would do it. I'll also leave his channel in the description. He's a very good kenner and he's helped me a lot recently with my cannons, with figuring out new things. We played factions together and we made some cans together, so definitely go subscribe to him as well. So the way you do this is actually not a normal way. If you would try to put some TNT, well, on this version, if you try to put some TNT in the TNT or sand, it wouldn't stay there. With the one power, you could put some TNT in your hammer, as for example nuke hammer. That is probably possible, depending on how your hammer swings. Because your hammer is moving upwards and explodes mid-air, it is going to swing a lot. So it could swing that other TNT that explodes later very far up. But if your swing ratio is good, the TNT could stay on top of the stack and explode. Only problem being that after 117.1, explosions from above build height don't do block damage. So what do we do about this? Well, we could try to put the TNT in our sand, but with the ratio we're using here, even if we put the TNT that goes in the sand on the TNT guider, that will go above the hammer. And if we put the TNT that goes in the sand on the sand guider, it won't HE at all since the exposure point is way too far down. So what do we do? Well, the answer is we have to get the TNT a bit lower than the hammer somehow. So we still put it on the TNT guider, but we align it differently. So in this setup, my hammer is aligned here to the left, and the TNT that goes in the sand stack is aligned to the right. Now you could just do this with block alignments, but in my case, while the TNT ended up under the hammer, it still ended up above build height. So if I stack to build height, the TNT would end up above the stack and not do damage. That's why I went a little further and put walls here to align the TNT to, so that it would be about here when the hammer went off, so that it could actually always be in the top of the sand stack. I also added some pseudo at the top of the stack, so I can blow up the stack a little further down, so I can stack again on the next wall. This is important because, well, the AG still shoots down here. So if you're very close to the cannon and there's a stack here, you won't be able to stack. It's a little bit of a problem, so that's why I added some pseudo very high up. The way I did that is just added some delay on the last pistons of my sand comp, 1 and 2 redstone ticks, and added 2 explosions. That those blow up around here and here. I believe you could see it with my explosion boxes before. Let me show it to you again. This will ensure that I am able to stack again on the next shot. Obviously at a further distance this is not as big of an issue since the TNT has already gone further up, but that is quite important. Now let's talk about the sand comp for a little bit, because this is a huge sand comp. And the reason it is like that is because the way I've laid out this cannon. If you look at this cannon you can see that the barrel is up here. So how am I getting everything up there? So first of all we have the power. It gets dispensed down here. Gets boosted into here, and very quickly gets shot up by a booster and rayliner here, up to the top. This also aligns it to the right side, so we don't have any alignment issues. Then here we have our hammer. There's a little extra compartment here, because I needed a bit extra hammer, and don't worry about it. That hammer, obviously we need a big hammer since we're not tunneling it, goes all the way down here. Could have moved it up a bit further, but I used to have more hammer in the build, and it would have been a lot of work to do so. Then we have some magic here. This hammer gets realigned into this block here, and there's a sticky piston here with a side block that realigns the booster for the hammer to the same size, since it was hard to wire realigner TNT down there. But as I mentioned earlier, the hammer needs to be aligned to this side, and currently it's realigned to the other side. So what I do here is while the hammer gets shot up, I push it with the slime block to realign it to this side. This requires some precise timing, but with Cannon Debug it's very easy, and it is 100% consistent as far as I can tell, so it's not an issue. Lastly we have the sand, which gets fed into this huge comp. Using conveyor tech, I can bring all the TNT to the middle, and I only need to use one large booster to boost it out. So this can be done very fast. And the TNT gets aligned up to here, and it actually gets just shot up by the last booster segment. We also have a realigner here. That alignment can be a bit wonky with conveyor tech, and the TNT actually for some part have very minuscule X velocity when going up here. Now I can just do this with the last booster segment. As you can see here, I made it very big. And then once the sand goes here, last booster segment shoots it up, which is a very clean way of doing it. This comp is also split into 2 parts just because of the repeaters here and the way I set it up on the middle row with 2 pistons on top of each other, with the butt pouring, that wouldn't have worked. So I put a gap there. Now, the reason, again, this scope is so big is because I only dropped 4 rows, because I need to drop all the sand really fast after the hammer. My hammer drops really late, because obviously it's an AG. The hammer explodes super late, it stays in the air for a long time. And to do OE properly, I need to render my sand after my hammer. That's why I need to drop it very fast, and that's why the sand comp is so long. It shoots up all the sand into here, and all the stuff gets boosted into the barrel by these extra boosters with the proper guiders. It falls here for 8 game ticks, which is the game ticks required in my ratio. And then it gets boosted out. Here we have the pseudo and scatter, as I've shown you before. This is the scatter that always lands in the top of the stack, and this is the pseudo for making the holes bigger. Now, I also said that this cannon has a 4-second auto, and I don't make empty promises, so let's show that off as well. As you can see, my FPS here are tanking quite a bit, because there's a lot of hammer swinging. I'm going to disable the explosion particles. This should also give you a bit of a better picture of how this cannon works. As you can see right now, the scatter actually just explodes mid-air. This is because the top pseudo actually blows up the stack, but in some cases, when you're not stacking the entire sand stack, that pseudo will actually, well, disappear. So for consistency, always have that scatter in the top. Also explodes a bit later, so if anything chance, I should blow it up. Actually looks very nice, even though the stuff going above build height looks kind of wonky. Then actually disappears above build height, so the sand going up here is just a desync. The sand goes about this height before stacking, and the TNT goes up further because it doesn't instantly despawn above build height. Also, excuse me, the sand actually doesn't despawn above build height always, it just despawns after it's of a certain age. Which in this case it is, that's why I have to be careful. As you can see, cannon works pretty well. And while this cannon with the sand comp is quite long, I think I've also managed to fit it in a decently small profile. So this could actually be used as a raiding cannon. Again, I've recently released the 1.19.2 beta server for Fragment. So if you want to try this for yourself or you need any help, join the Discord, join the server. Both links will be in the description. And if you have a server or are making a server and you need a canning jar for it, I have my jar that the server is currently running, the entropy jar, on my Patreon. Be aware that the jar is not fully developed yet, it's still in development, so there might be some issues, and it's not ready to deploy it on a production server yet. But if you're planning on making a server or you're still working on one, it's a good start. Also, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, I hope you enjoyed the cannon, and I hope you're happy that I uploaded once again. I probably won't make a cannon or upload in a bit again, because I'm kind of burnt out after making this entire thing. So, if you have any more questions or you need any help, feel free to join the Discord once again. And if you enjoyed this, if you think the cannon is cool, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video, guys. Merry Christmas.